Oh, so welcome to the second attempt at my plotting workshop, which is then a guide from the server plotter extraordinaire, aka me. I am one of the senior moderators at the only senior moderator at the writer's block. So, what is plotting? Plotting is your story, short, short, if you're like me with the bunny ears, and condensed into one so you can see your whole story before you actually start writing it, which is very useful for writer's block and for um, plot holes. Because if you notice a plot hole, you can fix it and you'll have a lot less to fix than if you're like 50K words into a story, right? It can be a puzzle to see where the different plot points fits. And it's a guide. It's your guide through your own story. What are the perks of plotting? As I said, it combats writer's block because you always know what to write. At least the way I do it. You always know what's coming next. So you don't really have like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen and I'm stuck. I wrote myself into a hole. None of that because the story's already there. You can do it however works for you. There's no one set guide how to outline and how to plot. I will be going through my way of outlining and plotting, but yeah, you can always change it, which is one thing I found people don't really know. Like, one mistake I see people talk about when they're talking about plotting is that, oh, if you write it down like that, you can never ever change it, and that's not true. You can always change your outline, and you get a fun puzzle, but with your story. And as you can see, there are some post-it notes there. Those will be useful later. So how do you plot? Well, it depends. It depends on you. Your method will be different from mine. But I'm going to go through my methods so you might learn something. So you start with the premise. What is a premise? A premise is a short one line that tells you what's going to happen in the story and who your main character is. How does the story end? What needs to happen from A to Z? And the most important question, which is why? And I will explain why the why is important. Here are some examples of premises. A boy finds out he's a wizard and has to battle against an evil wizard who tried to kill him as a baby. What story is this? Can anyone tell me? Yes, it's Harry Potter. Um, very identifiable, right? It is a boy who finds out he is a wizard and has to kill an evil wizard who tried to kill him as a baby. That's what you need to do to your story. A girl volunteers to a tournament to the death to save her sister. Which story is this? Yay! It's the Hunger Games. Again, very identifiable. You know what story it is from this premise. And a woman kills 7 people on a space cruise ship. Which story is this? Yeah, it's mine. Yay! Again, this is the premise I started out with. So now take 1 minute and write down the premise of your story. It can be a story you're working on, it can be a totally random story. Spend 1 minute to write down a 1 second. Oh, hi, Sam. You just came in time for homework. Take 1 minute to write down a 1 second sentence that summarizes your story and your main character. And go. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Woo! So, does any of you have premises? I already see two. Any story, but yeah. Um, so now let's go through my plotting journey. You all have your premises, right? Premise, check. Now we get to the ending. How does your story end? And this is one of the things I think even the most extreme of cancers should do. Figure out your ending. And it can be as simple as it's going to end tragically or it's going to end happily. Because sometimes I see with cancers, the ending just comes out of left field and it's a total whiplash. Yeah, exactly. It ends messily. So figure out your ending from the start. And then you do what needs to happen. This is when you thought dump. You write down every single thought you have of this story. It can be from characters, dialogue, plot points, aesthetics, location, whatever it is you want. I usually take like 1 hour a day to do this, depending on what I'm doing and stuff. And then we have the 6 big plot points, which we will return to later. And then you fill it up and you do it chapter by chapter. Yeah. And then we have the post-it method, which is what I use where I fill in the 6 big plot points, set them up on a board, and then I write down like what needs to happen between each of those. And it's a really easy way to see where you have plot holes and where your ideas stop. And this can take a while. Usually this just doing this takes me about a week. So yeah, it takes time. Plotting is not something you can rush through. At least not if you want to do it as much as me. And here we have some examples. A premise: a boy set out on an adventure when his mom is kidnapped by donkey people. And an ending: boy saves his mom and it lives happily ever after. And here we have the 6 big plot points. I am swimming in post-it notes, yes. You have the opening image, which is boy eating dinner with mom. We have the inciting incident, which is mom is kidnapped by donkey people. We have the midpoint, which is boy finds out where mom is located. All is lost, boy thinks mom is dead. Climax, boy defeats the donkey leader and saves his mom. And the ending, boy and mom lives happily ever after. So, opening image is the first look at your work. It's how your reader gets introduced to your world. It's the first thing that happens in the story. Yes, donkey people. This this plot have been my way to explain plotting since I joined Discord. It's been a while. The inciting incident is when the plot really starts to happen. The midpoint is the middle of your story. It is like and yeah, it's the middle. All is lost is when your main character basically gets depressed. They've been failing and this is a big fail and they don't think they will recover, but they will. Then you have the climax, which is the highlight of your story. This is what the readers have been reading for. And then you have the ending, which is the ending. Very simple, right? And this is what I do. I have more. I think I have like 23 uh these, which is 10 in the first act, 10 in the second act, and 3 in the third act. While these are split up as opening image and inciting incident is the first act, midpoint and all is lost is the second act, and the climax and ending are the third act. But this is again, this is my way to plot. Not, you can use this, you can use some of it, or you can use none of it, or you can use all of it. It doesn't matter as long as it works for you. So here we have an example because I also do chapter by chapter outlining, in which I do this. Chapter 1. Boy's at dinner with his mom. He's being ungrateful and rude to her, and he ends up storming out after she makes him angry. He wishes she would just leave him alone. And then after that, chapter 2. Boy sees mom gets kidnapped by the donkey people. And so it goes all the way until the end. And this also takes me about a week. Maybe more, depending on how long the outline is. Right now, I'm working on a redo of my other outline. So I have 3 outlines. I have the basic outline, which is this, the premise, the opening image, ending, etc. And then I have the detailed outline, which is chapter by chapter. And then I have an extra detailed outline, which is even more detailed chapter by chapter. So my first detailed outline is 10,000-ish words long. And the extra detail outline, which is the one I'm working on now, which is also redoing it a little, is 2,500 words long. And it's only on chapter 5. So yeah, it's a lot. The conclusion: find a way that works for you. Not every method will work for you, and that's fine. Plotting is what you make it out to be. There's no set way to outline and there's no set way to plot. I've introduced you to my method, which I think is a very versatile method because you can just stop at any point and you have something at least. Your outline is not a rule book, it's a guide. You can change it however you want. I have had chapters that seemed long, but I figured out, oh, this is like not enough. So I combine it with the next chapter while I've been writing. That's fine. You don't need to make it super uh complicated, and you don't need to make it harder than it is. Remember your subplots. So your subplots are secondary plots that are not as important as the main plot. Your subplots, or the typical subplots, are, for example, romance. 2 characters that falls in love. But there's also subplots of friendship, finding oneself, and subplots are what makes your book a book and not a novella. Unless you want to write a novella, right? How your characters interact with each other and the word. Go ahead, ask your question. Oh, yes. Yeah, that seems totally fine. I've written. So, okay, what what is the story really about? And you can also have multiple major plots. For example, my story is about the woman who kills 7 people on the space cruise ship, but it's also about her falling in love with the captain of said space cruise ship. Those plots are equally big. So they're both major plots, and then there's subplots around that, which is um how the character is with other characters, for example. The main plot is what is your story about. The subplots are supplements to the main plot, but you can have more than one main plot. I would, however, limit it because the more main plot you have, the less time you have at each. So for me, maximum of 2 main plots, which is usually, and the way I like it, uh, books I read are romance fantasies. There is much fantasy as there are romance. Uh, right. So those are 2 major plots alongside each other. Whereas, uh, it depends on like the way of which plot is in your story. Also, plotting can and should go hand in hand with character creation. Your story is affected by your characters, and your characters are affected by your story. This is also why I like uh, writing chronologically, because my characters grow along with the story. Yeah, exactly. You need to figure out if your story is focused on romance or the journey. And it can be both. And yes, Sam, subplots are really important. Because if all your character does is fight the dragon or the donkey people, then you don't really get to see any more side of him than him fighting the dragons or the donkey people, right? And that can make your character seem flat by adding subplots like how he is with his mother or how he is with his siblings or his journey buddies. You see more sides of the character, which makes the character seem more three-dimensional. And you care more about the character that way. For example, Harry Potter. You have the main plot, which is Harry going to school, right? And then you have the subplots of how he is with his friend. Now, it's been years since I read Harry Potter, so I can't really say anything more than that. Uh, but that's how it is. You need the subplots in order to fully care about the characters, in my opinion. Yeah, and this is what I said by it has to go hand in hand with character creation. As I said, your plot is affected by your story. Your characters are affected by your plot, and your plot is affected by your characters. And this also comes in with character arcs, which are really fun, and we may do another workshop on. I will have that if that is something people want, a workshop on character arcs. Because at least, I write mostly character-driven stories. The characters are driving the plot forward, but the plot is also affecting how my characters are. The character at the beginning of the story is not the same as the character at the end, and that's fine. That's how it should be. We can also do a character creation workshop. We have a lot planned. If you have any special requests for workshops, please do put them in the workshop channel. Do any of you have any questions? How do you go about character creation? Well, I at least start with what does my plot need? Because I start with the premise, right? What kind of character does the premise need? For example, my main character, Iori, she is going to kill 7 people. Why does she kill 7 people? Because she's being mistreated in a society that's not good. Why does she kill these 7 people? Because those are the people she has access to, and so on. Yeah. And this is also why you do the thought dump. You write down everything that happens, every idea. You you can also, by character creation, you can also start with the premise of a character, right? Uh, the Hunger Games, a girl who is uh from a poor district and needs to feed her family gets pulled into that tournament, right? And then you expand on this. What are her hobbies? What are her, does she have any hobbies? Because she might not. How is her relationship to people? But again, this is a plotting workshop, so if we might have a character creation one if that is something people want. But we need to see what there is demand for in the server in order to have as many workshops as possible. Are there any more questions? No questions? I think we will end this here. I managed to get to the end. Finally. I'm so happy. Hey, and if you have any questions, feel free to ping me in the server. That's totally fine. Thank you, Jess. And I also have, if people are interested, my plotting method is written out in the writing help, uh, what's it called, channel, and pinned, so you can find it anywhere. Thank you. And again, feel free to ping me or ping the writing help. Have a nice day, and this will be uploaded on YouTube. Bye.